Hey, folks, from our Working Life podcast studios, I wanted to give you a preview of what you're going to get tomorrow. But first, I want to ask you to go and subscribe to the Working Life podcast. We need to get our subscriptions up. If you go to workinglife.org, as I'm talking here right after I'm finished, and click on the podcast tab, you can subscribe to the podcast and you can become a supporter, financial supporter through Patreon. Really would appreciate that. And while you're at it, go to iTunes. And you've been getting all this great content. I think it's great. People have told me so. You've been getting this great content. Go to iTunes and give us a 5-star review. Maybe say a few words. All you have to do is click and do the stars, and that'll push the podcast up in the rankings at iTunes and help us a lot. So tomorrow, On Tap is just an amazing podcast. I'm going to be talking to the guy who is going to beat Ted Cruz. And let's face it, Ted Cruz is the Zodiac killer, right? You've seen that on the internet. I'm going to be talking to Beto O'Rourke, and this guy's amazing. He's raised millions of dollars, and he is crisscrossing Texas in a car. He and I had a great conversation about policy, about politics, about his vision. So check that out. I'm going to also talk again to a teacher. You may remember in the last episode, in episode 76, we did a lot of coverage around the teacher strike in Oklahoma. And I talked to a couple of people involved, including a teacher named Jennifer Thornton. And she blew me away, partly because in that conversation last week, when I talked to her very briefly, she was part of a group. One other person was on the call. She told me that her salary is so low that she cannot afford to pay for her food for her son and her to survive. They go hungry on a teacher's salary in the United States of America. And so I've invited Jennifer back to give me her full story, just her. And that's going to be on the podcast too. You really shouldn't miss this. And you've got to pass that along, the story of a teacher, a 14-year veteran in the teaching profession who does not make enough money to have food at the end of the month. And then we're going to wrap up with some more GOP tax fraud. And we're going to be talking to one of our experts from the Institute for Taxation and Economic Policy more about the GOP tax fraud. And Trump has his own personal tax fraud that he's pushing out and that he's been implementing through Trump.com and the way they sell stuff and don't collect sales tax. It's pretty funny, actually. But the main thing is really to talk about the way in which the GOP wants to extend these terrible tax cuts that were basically for the rich and big corporations and not for us. And obviously the timing is, because I know a lot of you are trying to finish your taxes, the timing is to right around tax day coming up. So check out the podcast, become a supporter, and let us know what you think.